Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. The playoffs are off and running. What a start. Oh, my goodness. We've got a lot of playoff basketball to talk about. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. We're going to get into some awards today as well. But first, Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. That Thor trailer, it finally dropped. I woke up this morning and saw the notification and went, oh, boy. How excited are you for that?
Oh my God, man. So I'm still buzzing from the Celtics Nets game.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a high from that all day yesterday. I woke up feeling really good and I was ready to write this morning and all excited. And then I see trending on Twitter as I sign in Thor Love and Thunder. And I was like, oh, what happened? And I was like, oh, the teaser
It's
trailer.
been
Holy
trending for a
cow.
while though, and it's been a fake out. People have been talking
Yeah.
about why the
Yep.
trailer isn't out, and so I've done that.
Yep.
I've probably 5, 6 times at least in the last couple of weeks. I went,
Yep.
"Oh, it must be out." Oh no,
Yep.
people are complaining it's
Yep.
not out.
And it was
Yep.
today. And man, does it look good. They are nailing song choices for
Yes.
these trailers. Like you using
Sweet Child of
Sweet
Mine.
Child of
Yep.
Mine by Guns N' Roses, and this one just unbelievable. And then just the peak at the very
Mm-hmm.
end of Natalie Portman, Jane Foster's Thor. Just a little glimpse at the end. Just so good. I mean, yeah, I can't wait. I'm so fired up. We're only a couple weeks from Doctor
Yep.
Strange. Moon Knight's in full swing. Like it's just keep it coming, Marvel. But we'll digress. We'll move on to
If we
basketball.
hey, we're gonna have a summer Marvel show at some point, if
We
not
are. Yep.
multiple Marvel shows, because
It might be.
there's gonna be some points where we're gonna need to. But yeah, I can't wait for it. It's gonna be absolutely fantastic. I love seeing Mjolnir like kind of pieced back together and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Very, very cool. So I'm gonna have to make sure we
Yep.
check that one out. Uh, the NBA. They had some exciting things going on as well. Maybe
Yeah.
not as exciting, but some exciting things too. I suppose let's start with a little bit of news, I guess. So Mark Stein mentioned that Malcolm Brogdon is likely to be traded by the Indiana Pacers. We talked about this a lot during the regular season that the Pacers weren't allowed to trade Malcolm Brogdon during the regular season. We'd have to wait until the offseason. I wonder though what his trade value is going to look like, given that he spent so much time on the shelf this year. I know there were some games probably towards the end of the season where he could have maybe played, but the Pacers decided to err on the side of caution,
Hmm.
particularly knowing they would probably move him this summer. Didn't want him suffering another injury. But what do you think? If he could stay healthy, I think this is a guy that'd be in high demand, but there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be concerned about the limited number of games he has played.
Yeah, super movable contract, about 22.5 million for each of the next 3 seasons. It's 22.6 next
Mm-hmm.
year and then 22.5 each of the next 2 years. Those were his extension years. He is, I think, older than people think, because we remember he came into the league as an older
Right.
rookie. So he'll be 30 right around the beginning part of next season, mid-December. So, but yeah, I guess just a little bit into the season. But he is signed long term. He's a really good on and off ball guy. He can run an offense as your point guard. Does really well playing off the ball. He's a solid defender, especially in good schemes. So yeah, I think there'll be a pretty good market for him, because I find teams tend to overlook the injury
Mm-hmm.
concerns when they're making trades. Now, what it probably impacts more is the return the Pacers get. They're probably not going to get anything like monster return package, and I think part of that will likely be because of Brogdon and those injury concerns. So I do think that's where this will go. But overall, I think they're gonna get something nice, and somebody's gonna get a pretty good player.
Now, the Lakers have been connected to Malcolm Brogdon, to Buddy Hield, to the Pacers, but we also had Mark Stein mention that the Lakers might not be quite so willing to take back anything in a Russell Westbrook
Yep.
trade, that instead they are going to have as a prime consideration the injury history of any players they bring back. Now, Stein used that to, I talked a little bit on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel about what that might mean for Malcolm Brogdon, but Stein used that to jump into Gordon Hayward and why the
Hmm.
Lakers might prefer a Terry Rozier option instead, or at least that's the assumption that's out there. What are your thoughts on that? To me, it almost feels like negotiating through the press to a degree, right? The Lakers kind of pushing back a little bit on this idea that they'll take anything for Russ, particularly focusing on, hey, we want guys who are going to be healthy because we've had so many health issues over the last 2 years.
Sure. Yeah. I tend to think that becomes a little bit more of a, like you said, negotiating ploy, where if it's, hey, Hornets, we'll take Gordon Hayward, but you have to add to that, right? You need to add Kelly Oubre and Mason Plumlee and something else. And I know people are going to be, Mason Plumlee. Well, Mason Plumlee's started for a team that made the play-in, and he's not horrible. So at least we'd give you something, and that gives you a $9 million tradable contract later. So I think that's the kind of thing the Lakers are probably going to be putting out there right now is, right, we've said all along, you do this, you got to split that Westbrook deal up into 2, 3, 4 players if you can, just to increase the viability of building out your roster. So I think that becomes the mark here. I do think it should be a consideration that you can't be doing a trade where the main thing you get back is you're trying to sell, because it's hard to sell your fans, hey, I know we got player X back, but really we got him because that's a tradable contract. Like, nobody really wants to hear that, right? You're not a rebuilding team. So it turns into you got to be able to sell something other than, hey, here's Gordon Hayward, who might play half the games next season at best, right? When you're already facing that potentially with LeBron and AD. So I understand that kind of trepidation, but I also think if you could turn it into Hayward and, 2 other guys, sure, then that is something that starts to make a lot more sense. And for whatever games you get together with them, however few it is, Gordon Hayward's a heck of a lot better fit with AD and LeBron than Russell Westbrook was ever going to be.
That's a low bar to clear, but yes, you are correct.
That Keith Smith, hot take. I went way out on a limb on that one.
and just the Lakers lacked so many wings this year. I mean, they had virtually none in terms of big wings that could do the kind of things they need them to do defensively. Not that Hayward is a lockdown defender or anything, but he gives you some size on the wing that the Lakers could certainly use.
He's fine defensively. Sure. Yeah, he's not. You're not grabbing him and putting him on the other team's best player by any means, but he does okay. And I think we have kind of collectively forgotten, like, this guy's not bad. No. I mean, he just can't stay healthy. Basically since that opening night injury with the Celtics, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. But this year, 15.9 points, 4.6 rebounds, 3.6 assists. His playing time was down a little bit, but 45, 39, 85 from the field. That's pretty good. And last season, 47, 41, 84 from the field, 19.6 points, 5.9 rebounds, 4.1 assists. Like that's a good versatile player that could definitely help. And we all know, maybe you get him and Quinn Snyder, and you already lead the league in Hollywood haircuts too.
There you go. That's all it takes. Quinn Snyder needs to after he's done coaching, he needs to transition into acting, because he is the best villain face.
Oh my gosh,
ever,
100%,
ever.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he like, if they were still, I know Bruce Willis is unfortunately retired from acting, but if you were making a Die Hard movie, Quinn Snyder could 100% be the bad guy in a Die Hard movie.
I said he could be Arthur Harrow in Moon Knight. He could have been.
Yeah, he could have been
that role. Although, did you know this is a thing? Sorry to take us down another rabbit hole. People think that's Kevin Bacon.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And not Ethan Hawke?
Yeah. And I can kind of see it. Like, I kind of get where they're coming from. I can see it, but yeah, a lot of
long hair, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't.
Kevin Bacon. Do you remember the movie Air Up There?
Yes.
Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
Where he's the basketball coach. He has kind of long hair.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll have to, now that you say it, I hadn't thought of it, but now that you say it, I guess that makes. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, but I guess I can kind of understand it. So, yeah. All right. Let's want to move into these playoffs?
Let's do it. You want to start East or West?
Doesn't matter. You pick.
Okay.
I'm good either way.
Let's go East. And let's just start at the top with the number 1 seed. Let's go Miami and Atlanta. Gosh, Miami's good. Miami's so good. That's why I want to get an easy rep in here with Miami, Atlanta before we move into the tougher ones. Miami, gosh, they're so good. They're on the same page. I don't think the Hawks, Trae Young, are going to shoot quite that bad in the future, but Miami is just they're just the better team, and you can see there are moments where Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, guys like that are doing things out on the floor where you just went, that's something that guys who know how to win do. Just they've got
Yep.
that experience. They know how to make the big play, and they do it. And so Miami, I almost feel like Miami, and maybe this is me personally, has been getting overlooked a little bit too much in the East.
I think so too. I think there's definitely something to that. But you know what? I bet that's exactly how they want it.
Yeah.
Right. You know, Eric Spoelstra is telling those guys, daily, like, hey, everybody's talking about Boston, Milwaukee, Brooklyn. They don't think you can win. And he's probably just hammering that message. Philly and Toronto are, the fun teams everybody's wondering about and all that. But man, you're exactly right. Trae Young and Bogdanovich are not going to combine to shoot 1 of 20 again in this series. That will not happen. I do think the Heat have better defenders for them, so I don't all of a sudden expect them to combine to go 15 of 20 in the next game. I do think there will be a game where Trae Young will score 40 to 50 points and probably lead the Hawks to a win, but it may come when they're down like 3-0 and the Heat are just kind of out there playing around. But offensively, 35 assists on 43 baskets.
Incredible
for Miami. I mean, that is just machine like, coming out. And when you have that long of a layoff that they had, basically a full week off, really exactly a week off for a lot of the guys, because a lot of the guys did not play in that final game for them. Just absolutely, domination, rolled over them, locked in defensively, and then just offensively. Duncan Robinson, 9 out of 10 from the floor, 8 out of 9 out of 3. You got to feel really good if you're a Heat fan seeing that, because he had not been very good this entire season. So yeah, just absolutely rolled in. Kyle Lowry, played a Kyle Lowry game, just absolutely controlled things. Not the biggest stat line, but absolutely ran the show and got them whatever they wanted.
That pick at a critical moment on Trae Young too.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, absolutely amazing. They are for real. They're very, very good. Let's jump over to the 76ers and the Raptors. Man, injuries hitting the Raptors already. Scotty Barnes dealing with an injury. Gary Trent Jr. potentially out due to illness. This is not great for Toronto. Thad Young dealing with something as well. It's tough.
Sprained thumb.
Yeah, it's tough seeing the Raptors get hit by all of these things. I thought James Harden did James Harden things. Joel Embiid was pretty tough to deal with in there. And then when you've got guys suffering injuries like that, on top of, I thought the Raptors didn't particularly play that well, and you've got a game 1 win there for Philly. I'm not going to count the Raptors out, but if Scotty Barnes is done, which it's sounding like he's doubtful for game 2, that's going to be really tough to make up that ground now.
He's now been ruled out.
Oh, has he? He's been ruled out completely.
A while ago.
I missed that.
And let's not overlook Tyrese Maxey. Absolutely going bananas.
He was fantastic.
He was just too quick for any of the Raptors guards. Like, he just really got what they wanted. I applaud Philly for playing up tempo a little bit more than I think they really wanted. That one bounce pass Harden had from like half court to Maxey, the two-handed bounce pass. For him to get him that layup was really good. I thought Tobias Harris played great too, which is, something there. Embiid was not awesome in this game on offense. He struggled a little bit. Harden did not shoot well, but they really moved the ball.
They did
well.
other stuff.
Harden and Maxey picked up. Embiid was dominant defensively. So it's just going to be tough. The Raptors, they're going to have to really kind of junk this game up, play weird defenses, do some different stuff. Maybe going a little bit bigger helps them slightly with Barnes out. I would expect Birch to start, but if Trent can't go, they just don't have great wing depth. They've got a bunch of wing-sized guys, but they'll start in, Siakam, Barnes, Anunoby, and Trent. You take 2 of them out, they don't really have backups to slide in for those guys. So I'm going to be very curious to see what Nick Nurse does. But if there's a coach in the league that I trust to come up with some goofy kind of game plan that looks weird, it's Nick Nurse. So we'll see what happens. But it's always a tough road when you lose game 1. It's going to be even harder for them now.
Absolutely. Jumping to the Milwaukee Bucks and the Chicago Bulls. I mean, again, Milwaukee, very, very good. The Bulls, I thought they put up fight. I thought Alex Caruso made some big plays for them defensively, but ultimately Giannis is Giannis. The Bucks are the Bucks. They execute when they need to, and they find ways to get the win. It felt like every time the Bulls were right there ready to push back, then the Bucks just said, nope, we're just going to do this, this, and this, and we're going to extend our lead again because this is what we know how to do. And this is what we've been saying about Milwaukee all along. They've got the experience. Come playoff time, they're going to kick it in. Maybe, the Bulls obviously missing Lonzo Ball. That certainly matters. But ultimately, I mean, Milwaukee has just as good of a chance as any other team, maybe better than any other team, to come out of the Eastern Conference, because they do have that confidence that you see when they're playing. They've got that experience. They know how to do it, and they know exactly how to execute down the stretch.
If I'm the Bulls, this is like missed opportunity city here, because the Bucks did not shoot well. They also turned it over 21 times in this game. So not shooting well combined with 21 turnovers. But when DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and Zach LaVine combined to shoot 21 of 71 from the field, you're not going to win. It's just impossible. Vooch and LaVine were combined 4 of 20 from 3. If you just look at their scoring lines, they all look like, well, not too bad. Vooch 24 and 17, LaVine 18 points, 10 rebounds, DeRozan 18, 8 and 6.
They missed their big momentum shots.
Exactly. Yep. And you just got to look at those shooting lines. They're just so awful. I mean, they shot 32%. Now, I guess you look at it and say, hey, we shoot a little bit better, we probably win this game, right? We make, just a couple guys make the shots they usually make, and we win this game. But on the flip side, Milwaukee's not going to turn it over 21 times again in this series. They're also not going to commit or shoot as poorly as they did either. So that's tough. Well, when you get the other team to play, that's my guess is that this is the worst the Bucks will play in the series, and this might be the worst the Bulls will play in the series too.
It wasn't a pretty game for sure. I mean, 93 to 86 was the final score. But did you, watching this game, at any point feel like the Bucks were really going to lose?
No,
I didn't either. And that's what I'm talking about. Even as sloppy as this game was and as ugly as this game was, it felt like the Bucks had this well under control pretty much the entire way.
Yeah, I can't say that about the next one.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's get to your team, the Celtics and the Nets. The Celtics, I mean, a thriller at the buzzer, going up 1-0. Jason Tatum with a nice cut. And here's my outsider's perspective. I know you're going to have plenty to say on this one, Keith, but it's such a styles clash to me, particularly on the offensive end of the floor, watching these two teams. You've got the Nets, who are very much ISO friendly because they've got Kevin Durant, you've got Kyrie Irving. Oh, the offense is breaking down. Here you go, KD, go get us a bucket. Here you go, Kyrie, your turn now. Go do your thing. Whereas the Celtics on the other side, very team oriented. Sure, you can give the ball to Tatum, he can create something, or Jaylen Brown or whoever, but it's a much more team focused attack. And so seeing that contrast of styles play out on the court, it's really, really interesting. And watching the way the game played out, I was surprised that the Nets were as close to getting this win as they were, because I thought Boston was playing better, but the Nets just hit some really tough shots. But then, of course, the Celtics do manage to get the big stop, and then the score. Again, a team first play. Marcus Smart doesn't panic under pressure, and then Jason Tatum makes the right cut at the right time, and here's a layup to win the game. Absolutely incredible stuff. And again, it was a lot of fun, but I think the Celtics can play better than what they did against the Nets this last game, and really seize control of this thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff the Celtics can clean up for sure. Some of their switches weren't exactly on point the way they want them to be. They were when they needed them to be, especially at the end of the game. But they did not shoot all that well. At various points that they left some points on the board, both at the free throw line and not pushing the issue. This game, the officiating was brutal, and for like most of the first 40 minutes, it was like touch foul after touch
and
foul. Then the last 8 minutes was like clotheslining dudes into the second row, and it's like, just let it go. Like, you can't. It needs
to be one or the other. I think that's all teams want. Just be consistent. Yep. That's it.
Because then they
can say, okay, well, that's a foul. I need to adjust to that. But when you're changing mid-game what is and isn't a foul, that's an impossible situation for the players to be in. That's when things get ugly. That's when fans get frustrated. Just be consistent.
Yeah, I know. 100% with that. I think what you said about the end game, as clearly I've watched every Celtics game this year, twice, all of them. And they are in a position now where they're just a different team. They do things differently than the way they did it earlier. And you saw it in those end game situations. They quite frankly, if this game was being played with the way Boston played in October, November, December, and even the very early stages of January, they would have crapped their pants at the end and they probably would have lost by 10. Instead, they were able to stay composed. They had 2-for-1 that Jaylen Brown got right at the end of the game was huge. Then they were able to get into right back, get that stop. Marcus Smart's defense on Kyrie Irving on that play, because Kyrie wanted that shot. He wanted to be the one to clinch that game.
And didn't pull the trigger on the three. He had the opening, but he wanted to burn a little more clock.
Initially.
And that was the mistake. He had the initial pull from three going to his left. He was squared up. I thought he was going to pull the trigger, and he decided to burn more clock. And I think that was the big. I mean, I understand wanting to burn clock in that situation, but that was the open look that he had, and he turned it down.
Yep. And then Horford and helping out there. Then Tatum's defense on Durant. I have another point on Tatum in just a minute. Getting that stop, Horford getting the rebound, and then Ime Udoka said, "I'm gonna always let the guys go without calling a timeout at the end of the game, and we trust that if they get stuck, I will call the timeout." But Jaylen Brown rushing it up the floor, didn't rush into a shot himself. Kicked it out to Marcus Smart. Smart then didn't take the three. If you had told me Marcus Smart was going to pass up a three-point shot, I would have assumed that was only because somebody was standing wide open under the basket that he could dime up. And that's kind of sort of what happened, except Tatum wasn't exactly wide open. Tatum said after the game, when everybody's like, "How did you know to make that cut?" And he said, "Honestly, I was going to get in position for an offensive rebound." He's like, "That's why I was running so hard." And Smart hit him. He made the great spin move. There's now angles that have come out that show probably should have been an and one, but at that point, it didn't really matter. Put it in, and they escape with the 1-point victory. My point on Tatum that I wanted to go back to, he's been kind of all year long, really started in the second half of last season, but all year long, he's been like knocking on that door of like, is Jason Tatum a top 5-10 player? Like where you feel very like, just put him on the list. We'll figure out his placement later on that list. This was the kind of game where I think this is the one where you look to and you say, he's there. That's where he is, somewhere in that 5 to 10 range, without a doubt. And maybe there's the potential to start knocking on that top 5. I don't think he's quite there yet, but that potential. I mean, 31 points, 8 assists, and he was the primary defender on Kevin Durant. And helped, big part of holding KD to 9 of 24 shooting. So, just an unbelievable game for him. And, thank God there's 2 days off. Because I know I need them. I'm sure everybody who played needs them, with that. But yeah, it was what a game to open a series. It felt like a finals game.
Looking when they released the starting lineups, I initially just went, the Nets have no chance in this. I mean, when they put the starting 5 out, I went, they're not big enough. They don't have you can't have 3 guys who are 6'2" to 6'4" in your starting lineup and deal with the Celtics team that plays big. I mean, the Celtics play like the 2020 Lakers did. They're bigger, faster, stronger than you, and they're going to beat you with that type of stuff. And and
they're physical. Bruce, they're going to hit you. I mean, they beat the crap out of Kevin Durant in this game, to the point where some Celtics fans are like, all these foul calls. And it's like, some of these aren't bad calls. And you know what? I don't think the Celtics really care about Grant Williams giving up a couple fouls. They don't care if that gets KD out of his game. Sure, go for it. But 14 offensive rebounds for Boston in this one. Steve Nash, we'll see. They're not going to overreact. They're probably going to come back with the same groupings for game 2 because it was a 1-point loss. You don't want to go crazy if you're the Nets. But I do think there's got to be some questions that start getting asked of like, all right, can we really run with Andre Drummond out there? Can we run those 3 guard groupings with Dragic, Mills, and Kyrie, or Dragic, Curry, and Kyrie? Those are tough against Boston because you're absolutely right. I mean, their smallest guy they play is Peyton Pritchard, and he's what did he get? Yeah, 8 minutes. He's a 10-minute a night guy off the bench. Everybody else that they play, the next smallest guy is Marcus Smart, who's one of the bigger, stronger guards in the league.
Yeah, I mean, look, Bruce Brown, he plays big for his size, 6'4", but you can't play him as your small forward against this Celtics team, and there's not really another option on this Nets roster. It's not like they're missing probably a couple of big wings here. I think that's going to be the difference in this series is the Nets don't have that player. And that's why I picked the Celtics to win this in 5. I don't see the matchup for the Nets to deal with the size of Boston. But before we move on, Kyrie is probably going to lose a little bit of money for some of the things going on there. But then again, honestly, I don't blame him too much. A lot of the stuff that was being said to him was pretty over the top. And, and I understand there's a lot of feelings towards Kyrie there. There's a lot. But we always talk about, fans crossing the line and saying things. Now you've got Kyrie kind of lashing back out. I just hope it doesn't get worse between Kyrie and the Celtics fans in game 2.
Yeah, he's going to get fined. I mean, past precedent in the league is guys get fined for this stuff. Well, the big thing will be, is the NBA going to treat it as one fine, or are they going to break it up? Because he technically had 3 or 4 different. Yeah.
Does he get like a bulk rate here on this, or how does that work?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I don't know who it was. Somebody tweeted like they should give him a option to just like, hey, can I buy a fine amount for the entire series, like up front, like a package plan? Yeah, my thought on it is one, when he came out initially and he did all his hey, we just all, it's just basketball, like blah blah blah. He said that a few days ago, and then he gets in there and like obviously it's not for you either. Yeah. So like let's not, don't give us any of the speeches about everybody be better. Everyone should be better. Just because you buy a ticket doesn't give you the right to say anything you want. There's definitely things that are 100% gross and no-goes. Anything too, like I said, this about Russ when he complained, anything directed towards players' families is off limits and it's disgusting. You should be immediately kicked out. You say racist stuff, see you later out. Like nobody needs to hear that stuff. But people saying you suck and all that, that's, guys, that's like the most benign thing.
Sure.
I had a game, but I also have no problem with him responding the way he did either. Like if he truly doesn't care about the money, which obviously doesn't, he forfeited half of his paycheck this year,
right?
By not playing, then I don't care. Let him do what he wants. And does it make it more entertaining and give the series a real villain on that one side? Sure. If that's, if you're into that stuff, like again, yeah, everybody should probably be better, but if they aren't, then say what you want as long as it doesn't cross the line either way.
Like I said, my hope is that it doesn't escalate into anything further in game 2. We'll see. We'll see what, we're going to, obviously the NBA is going to issue fines and things of that nature, but we'll see where this ultimately goes. Let's jump over to the Western Conference. Again, we'll start with the easy one. The Phoenix Suns are better than the Pelicans. Yeah. And, Chris Paul did Chris Paul things down the stretch. The Pelicans, look, they did what they could. They put up an effort and everything. But, the Suns are very, very good. They've been the best team in the NBA this season. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. This is the one you projected, I think we both did, to be a sweep. And for good reason. Again, Phoenix is a very, very good team.
Yeah, I guess the big thing for me was Jonas Valanciunas getting 13 offensive rebounds.
Sure.
That's something I get. If you're Monty Williams, right, you always want to come out of a game with something.
But he was 7 of 21 shooting, too. Like, how many of those were tip-ins from his own misses?
A handful of them were his own. And they missed an awful lot of shots anyway as a team. But, yeah, the Suns are I continue to say this, they're the best and most complete team in the league. They defend, they can score, they do all their stuff. They're just great. So I'm not going to spill a whole bunch of more words on this one because I just don't. I don't feel like it's necessary.
There's not as much to say. Jumping over to the Mavs and the Jazz. The Mavs did what they could. No Luka. I thought they were right there. You saw them making some plays and doing everything they possibly. But ultimately, we said this. If Luka plays, they win. If Luka doesn't play, they probably just don't quite have enough firepower to keep up with the Utah Jazz, and that is exactly how things played out in Game 1. The question is, assuming no Luka Game 2, which I don't know if that's official yet, but that's what we've been hearing.
Nah, they're still saying doubtful.
They're going to keep that for as long as they can in question. But assuming no Luka in Game 2, can the Mavs manage to conjure up a win here? Or do they go down 0-2 and then have to head back to Utah and still, this pressure on Luka to get back? I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if the Mavs can get a win without him.
No, I think Matt Moore at HP Basketball on Twitter did a really good job pointing this out throughout the game. Is people were like, man, the Mavs are just getting deterred at the rim. And they were. That's also not where they live anyway. They
Yeah.
live in the mid range and they live on 3-pointers. They're not a big team that gets a lot of layups, but Rudy Gobert's presence in there certainly did turn, a few things away where it looked like they were driving in and looking to score. I mean, it really, by not to go steal the whole thing from what is it, NBA Today now or The Jump, but it is a make or miss league. I mean, they missed a lot of open shots. 9 of 32 on 3-pointers wasn't good. The single biggest stat for me though is Rudy Gobert got 1 field goal attempt. Now he did get 6 free throws, so he had 4 total shooting attempts in the game. But 1 actual field goal attempt. Dallas to the point where, and I actually reached out to someone and they're like, yeah, they will not throw him the ball. I'm on this. So we're going to keep putting guards on him inside if we need to, because they're just not going to give him the ball. Like that's insane. Like that is absolute insanity that he got 1 shot. This is a guy too. And I'm not going down this whole, we're going to get to the award stuff a little bit later. So I'm not the, biggest support Rudy Gobert on all things guy in the world. But this is a guy who on the French national team gives Team USA all sorts of problems because they'll give him the ball and play through him, but he can't play through against Jalen Brunson in the paint. Like, come on,
Right.
Utah. Like, I'm not to be all Twitter guy here, but grow up. Like,
how much of this is this freezing him out? Is that what we're talking about here? I mean, is that or is this a strategic thing Quinn Snyder is saying to them, guys, this is how we win the game. Don't give the ball to Rudy. Like, how do we feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, if it's freezing him out, talk about the most asinine time to do it in a playoff game. But I don't know how you could miss him open against, again, and no disrespect meant to Jalen Brunson, but there's a foot height difference there. At least a foot. Like, get Gobert the ball. Like, what are we doing? Like, just, all you had to, in those situations, do too, was probably throw it just in the general vicinity of the rim and let him go up and catch it, and it's an easy dunk. I don't know, man. I feel like it's a lot of, this offense was a lot of Mitchell and Bogdanovich taking, contested fallaways throughout the game, and they went in for Bogdanovich. They kind of went in for Mitchell, and and then that's what it was. I don't know. It makes me mad. I don't want to talk about that one anymore.
You had 83 shot attempts for the Jazz, 49 of them for Donovan Mitchell and Bogdanovich.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And then you've got Rudy Gobert. I mean, if anybody's asking for a trade this summer, they're pointing to this, right? Like if Rudy's frustrated and saying, "Hey, I'm only getting 1 shot attempt. Come on." But anyway, let's jump to Golden State. Golden State and the Denver Nuggets. Again, the Warriors looked really good. I had a lot of people saw a lot of the discourse on Twitter. People were saying, "Are we sure the Warriors aren't coming out of the West?" Because they looked awfully good. Our guy Jordan Poole doing his thing. Of course, Steph Curry back.
Let's pause there for a second. Truly 100% our guy.
Yep.
Go back and watch the shows over the summer. We were loving Jordan Poole and hyping him up as the Klay Thompson replacement. And basically, we repeatedly said they're going to be fine without Klay because they've got Jordan Poole to come back. So I feel, we'll conveniently skip all the things we got wrong. But let's pat ourselves on the back for that.
That's right. Steph Curry coming off the bench in this one, only played 22 minutes. I mean, it worked. So I was surprised. That's what they did, but it worked. Again, Jordan Poole was fantastic. 30 points for him to lead the team in scoring. 22 minutes and 16 for Steph. Klay Thompson hit 5 threes, so you'll take that. 19 points for him. Draymond did Draymond things. 6 boards, 9 assists, 3 blocks.
His defense
was fantastic
against Jokic. Unbelievable. Jokic went into that pivot series, I call it, where he just gets in the paint. He pivots like 15 times, and eventually somebody fouls him or gets out of position. Nope, Draymond just sat there, just sat on all of those, and then, you're going up now. All right, I'll contest. Like, God, unbelievable. Yeah. And Andrew Wiggins gave them exactly what they need. Andrew Wiggins to give them. All right, I'm going to couch this with, they were really close to Phoenix at the beginning of the year. Then as Klay came back, Draymond went out. As Draymond came back, Steph went out. So I think I said this on Twitter, I think we kind of forgot how good this team was. At the beginning of the season. I don't think they're going to pick Phoenix. I won't pick them to beat Phoenix, but play Phoenix in the West Finals. Yeah, it's on the table for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. They definitely could. I think it's huge that they stayed on the opposite side of the bracket from Phoenix.
Yep,
And
big
so
time.
that means that we're setting up for either Minnesota or Memphis in the second round for the Warriors, assuming they get through. Obviously, 1-0, there's still a lot of basketball to play. But let's jump to that. The upset here that we saw, the one
Yeah.
upset, I guess. We've got the Minnesota Timberwolves come into Memphis and get a win, go up 1-0 against the Grizzlies.
Yep.
Bit of a surprise that they were able to get that done. But you know what? You knew this was going to be a closer series than a 2-7 matchup would suggest. But you also knew that both of these teams get after it. Both of these teams play with a lot of energy, a lot of heart, a lot of hustle, and it was going to be a very fun series. And that's exactly what we got here. Are you surprised that this was really the one upset that we got?
I am. I didn't think it would go this way at
Mm-hmm.
all. I knew the Wolves are an improved
Mm-hmm.
defensive team, but I thought Memphis would still kind of run it down their throats all game and really cause them a ton of issues with that. But they played great. I did not expect to see. Now it was really Jaden McDaniels and Malik Beasley, but they were awesome off the bench
Mm-hmm.
for the Wolves and outplayed the Grizzlies bench. And part of the Grizzlies' success lies in their depth. And I don't right in the playoffs. We was talking about you cut down your rotation,
Yep.
right? If you play 10 in the regular season, you go to 8 or
They played
9.
10.
Yeah, they played 10, and I don't know where they cut down the rotation. This might be one of those. Remember Milwaukee a couple years ago when they kind of really took that first year, they took the step up to the top of the
Mm-hmm.
conference, and they was like, wow, man, this team is good. They've got 10, 11, 12 guys who can really play, and they were just blowing
Yep.
everybody out. And then they lost in the playoffs. Sometimes that's not a good thing. Sometimes it's more about having good, I call it functional depth, than it is having overwhelming depth. And I start to wonder, is this a situation where Memphis has more kind of overwhelming depth than functional depth? Is that, that's great in a regular season, but not so great in the postseason? I don't know. But that said, I think they'll play a lot better. I think Minnesota will play worse. I don't think they'll shoot
50
50%
40.
from the field.
They
Yeah.
essentially shot 50 40 90, 50
Yeah.
39
Yeah.
89. That was their percentages
Yeah.
for the Wolves. I don't think that is
Yep.
sustainable. And if you're Memphis, that's what
No.
you're looking at, right? You're saying, well,
Yep.
we know we can get those shooting percentages lower, and then we're right here.
Also, I think if you're Memphis, you survived the Anthony Edwards has this tendency to have these massive outscoring outbursts. Then he kind
Mm-hmm.
of goes in the
Yep.
tank and misses a bunch of shots for a few games in a row. All right, you got that in game one. You took that punch. You got knocked down. Now you come back and hopefully he'll come back to earth a little bit. But it was fun. I mean, really
Mm-hmm.
fun to see these guys kind of go up and down and get into it. There's an awful lot of trash talk
Yep.
both ways in this one. So yeah, that part, you bring that on. Let's go. I mean, if you remember, dude, John Morant get to the free throw line
20
20
times.
times.
Insane.
Like, get whatever he wanted throughout the course of the game. So I think you feel pretty good about, all right, let's just keep doing what we do here.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for the Grizzlies. I don't think their confidence is going to be shaken at all. I think they're going to come
Nope.
back out. This team's got way too much belief in themselves. You notice no shot attempts at all, no free throws, no nothing for Steven Adams. And
Yeah.
you sure he's perfectly fine
And 3
with that.
rebounds.
Only 3 rebounds. I mean, but if you look at what he's tasked with doing, he's fine with doing just that and letting everybody else be the ones to get the shot attempts up.
It's got to be more rebounds.
He does need more
Gotta get on
rebounds,
the offensive
but I think
glass.
he's focusing on trying to box his guy out and then almost a little Brook Lopez style, which is okay if the
Yeah.
other guys can come flying in and grab those. He probably does need to be a bit more active there on the boards. But
And I saw a lot of people saying, like, well, do you need to play Steven Adams less? Where do you go to?
I mean, Clark got
if you don't
27
against
minutes.
Cat? I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. had 5 fouls. I know he had 7
Yep.
blocks and was a huge impact on that end, but he had 5 fouls. Like he fouls way too much to put him on Cat. He'll be on the bench 3 minutes into the first quarter in foul trouble if you go there. And Brandon Clark was pretty good off the bench, but he's so small.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. That's you just need more out of Adams. He just needs to be better, and I think he will be. I will say this: I am preemptively, not that I'm trying to skip past game 2 of this series, but I am preemptively excited for that Minnesota crowd.
Oh yeah,
In game 3 back
they
there,
were
especially
so
the way they
loud
brought it
against the Clippers in the play-in.
Yeah. Yeah, knowing they got one of these on the
Mhm.
road, like, oh boy, they are going to be ready to go.
So one of the things to watch too is 3-point attempts in this series. We know the Wolves put up a
Mhm.
lot of them. 41 for Minnesota, 27 for the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies only shot it at 26%. That's the difference in this game. Can the Grizzlies do what they need to do to not necessarily get the attempts down for the Wolves, because they're going to shoot them, but get that percentage to come down a bit, and then they need to knock in a few more of their own. We'll see what they can do there. Also, the fouls in this game were a factor. I mean, you look at how many guys got into foul trouble. We'll see both these teams play very aggressive defensively, but there were a lot of, 32 fouls for the Wolves and 24 for the Grizzlies. This was a physical game.
And this was not a tightly officiated game. It was just, there was a lot of fouls. Like there was a lot of sloppy stuff too, like dumb stuff where it's like reaching on guys, 40 feet from the basket and things like that. So
if you're Minnesota, you're thinking D'Angelo Russell 2 for 11. Sure, some of the other guys might cool off, but D'Lo can shoot much better than that too. So maybe there is some sustainability there. I think we both had Grizzlies in either 5 or 6. Does the game one outcome change your prediction on that?
I think it'll probably go 6 now. I tend to think when the road team wins one, they'll get at least one more at home. So I'll say
staying
6.
with Memphis though.
Yeah, I'm still gonna stay with Memphis. I just and I don't think they'll overreact too much, but they not that Minnesota has a ton of playoff experience, but young team. Let's see. Minnesota gets up 2-1. That game 4. But huge breaking news, but becomes super duper important because if you're Memphis, you do not want to be going back home just to win to stay alive. Right. Like it's
Okay.
All right. Want to do awards?
Yes, we shall. We're already at the 40-minute mark for this show, but I don't think we need to detail these awards too much. So let's dive into it.
All right, guys. So just a couple things on these. We did the finalists now for the individual awards: MVP, Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man, Coach of the Year, Most Improved are all out. The NBA released those yesterday. Weird timing, which I know wasn't the plan, but right on the heels of that Celtics Nets game. So I think people were kind of still buzzing and missed a little bit of that. But those are all officially out. But so we're not picking off of those by any means. These were our picks. So we did them just like a real ballot would be done. Full disclosure, neither one of us has a real ballot. But we've got our we filled it out like it would be. So we'll go through each of the individuals, all NBA, all defense, and all rookie, and get into that. So of course, can't start anywhere but MVP. I'll go first here, just in case I'm playing human shield, just in case on this one. But I went with Nikola Jokic first, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Devin Booker, and Jason Tatum. I did not have a huge amount of concern picking Jokic over Embiid. I think their records were similar enough that I don't really care about that. Yes, they both dealt with stuff. Jokic with injured players, Embiid with the Simmons nonsense. I just think Jokic did stuff this year we've never seen before. All of this stuff, I know no one's going to come at us overly hard on this, but all of you're an idiot if you pick either guy, if you don't pick my guy, that's dumb. So I'm not going to, go there with that, but I did go with Jokic. My toughest thing was I leaned Tatum over Luka just slightly for the 5th spot. And that was just more the Celtics pulling into that 2nd seed in the East, the way they played down the stretch. I thought Tatum was a massive part of that, but I feel pretty good about that top 5.
Okay, so mine was like yours: Jokic, Embiid, Giannis. Obviously, going with Jokic, and again, you can really go either way with it, but Jokic, I thought their records were close enough. The Nuggets and the 76ers record-wise were close enough to where I wasn't going to factor team success in too much, and I just thought Jokic has been absolutely fantastic and deserves to be the back-to-back MVP. I'm not going to fall prey to like voter fatigue or whatever and just give it to Embiid instead. Giannis, I think, made a case, but Jokic was absolutely tremendous all season long, and if anything, maybe I broke the tie a little bit with my disdain towards the flopping stuff that we see out of Embiid and the foul hunting and all of that. It's not as egregious as we've seen from some players in seasons past, but it's so close between those two guys that may have influenced my decision a little bit there to go Jokic. Then at the 4 I have Luka, and then at the 5 I have Booker. Luka was just so good. I needed to make sure that he was in that mix there, particularly with that the late stretch from the Mavs where they really poured things on. The Celtics, certainly Tatum I gave consideration. but it's such a team first approach.
Sure.
And then Booker, because the Suns have been the best team for the entire season, I felt like he's been a big piece to that. They really spread out the heavy lifting, so it's hard to say there's an MVP from their team, but I felt like Booker deserved a nod there.
Yeah, I just when somebody is really, really good on the best team in the league by a very wide
Yeah.
margin, I have no problem with boosting the guy up a little bit. All right, so let's move on to Rookie of the Year. I'll let you go first on
Sure.
this
I've
one.
got it in this order, and I think the first two are interchangeable. If you want to tell me it's the other guy, cool. Evan Mobley got it for me, but Scotty Barnes is right there. And then Cade Cunningham gets the third spot for me. And again, if you told me reverse the first two, cool. I mean, it's a coin flip between the two of them in my mind.
So that's really funny because I had the same three, but I did reverse.
Oh, okay.
It. I went with Scotty Barnes over Evan Mobley. And I do not in Rookie of the Year because in general these guys go to really terrible teams. I don't factor in the team success stuff unless I use it as a tiebreaker. And in this case, I was so torn on Barnes or Mobley. I went with Barnes' team was a little bit better. And that's maybe not super fair because Mobley's team was better for most of the year. And he did have, arguably less help around him than Barnes did. But, this is one of those ones. This is almost one, too, where I wouldn't be upset if we did the old, but who was it? It was Grant Hill and someone back in the Grant Hill and
Jason Kidd
maybe. Split it. And then was it Elton Brand and someone a couple years later split it? I would not be upset if they split this voting here between those two guys. They both very deserving. Cade Cunningham still, I think, maybe the best player from this draft class. You just didn't have the best rookie year.
I think,
but it still had a very good.
I think Evan Mobley's ceiling is the highest of those three.
I think so too, probably because of his two-way ability to play on both ends. Yep.
All right. Defensive player of the year. I went first on last one, so you go with this one.
All right. Call me a homer.
You're a homer, Keith.
Marcus Smart. I went with Marcus Smart. I just think it's time for a guard to win. I think he was great. Then I went with Bam Adebayo second, and I went with Mikal Bridges third. I think it's absurd that Bam Adebayo was not in the real final list of these three. No knock against Rudy Gobert, but I thought he slipped some, and I thought the Jazz defense because of that slipped some, and I thought Bam was unbelievable in the games he played. I'm dealing with the whole rim protection is more important than anything else. Stuff. I think smart guards, everybody too. But again, if it was any one of those three guys who wins, the only way in real life I'm going to be upset is if Gobert actually wins again. Then I'm not going to be real happy because I think Smart and Bridges were both clearly better than him, and I also think Adebayo was better than him.
I actually have it the same way. I have Smart, Bridges, and Bam.
Look at you.
I've got it in that order. And now here's my little qualifier here though on Marcus Smart. It feels weird because it's almost a team award that's being given to an individual. Like, I don't know, is he really the best defensive player in the entire NBA? I don't know, but his team is the best defensive team, and he's a very, very, very good defender, and he's probably the one you point to the most on that end of the floor. So therefore, he kind of gets Defensive Player of the Year, but I'm giving him some credit here for how good the team has been defensively and not just his own particular defense. At least that's the way that I looked at it. I think he's certainly up there, and his name deserves to be up there. But in my mind, I'm breaking any kind of a tie here by looking at how good the Celtics team defense has been, and then bumping him up accordingly.
I think that's fair.
All right, let's go sixth man. I mean, I think this is. I'll be surprised if you have something different for the number one. I've got Tyler Hero winning the sixth man of the year. Then I've got Cam Johnson, and then Kevin Love sneaks in there for me.
Okay, so I have Hero too.
Yep.
No, this is not the guy who scores the most points off the bench award, right, which is quite often does turn into. But Tyler Hero was incredible as the sixth man and was a true sixth man all season long. Was that. I had Kevin Love number two. I thought in a lot of years, if Hero wasn't so good as a sixth man, I think Love might have won this award, and I think might have won it kind of easily. And then I had Tyus Jones,
okay,
the Grizzlies. is my other guy. And I'd have to look. I might have broken a rule there. He maybe did start too much with the amount of time John missed. But if he didn't, I feel really good about that pick because I thought Tyus Jones was excellent. Just as an aside, free agent this summer, I'm really curious to see because I think there are some teams. Jalen Brunson's the guy who's getting all the love as the free agent point guard. I think there's a couple of teams that might prefer Tyus Jones to him, especially if you don't need as much scoring. If you need someone to run the show, Tyus Jones also, he never turns the ball over. I mean, go look at his turnover numbers for his career. They are insane how efficient with the ball he is and that he never gives it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good pick.
Cam Johnson, though, finalist in real life, very deserving too. He was really, really good. So good call by you.
Yeah, I think that he's been fantastic. And part of this was I still have that banked in 3-pointer at the buzzer ringing in my head from Cam Johnson towards the end of the season. But I liked it. All right, let's go to most improved.
Most improved. This one's always a little bit hard because you don't want to just turn this into any crazy picks, and I've seen a lot of arguing about the real finalists out there. I went with Miles Bridges. I thought the jump he made for the Hornets was incredible this year. I thought he really became a really good player. DeJounte Murray was my second choice, and I had Jordan Poole as my third choice. I thought Jordan Poole, going from being a guy who looked like he could maybe be something, but on a really terrible team, to being a really good player on a very, very good team, was huge. But yeah, Bridges, Murray, and Poole for me, 1, 2, 3.
Good picks. And when you added, I don't have Bridges or Murray in there. Bridges would be the one that would probably bump someone on my list if I were to change something on here. But I mean, I wouldn't. I'm just saying that if I was to bump someone out, it would probably be Bridges would be the one that I would add in. I have Darius Garland as most improved.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Liked what he made the leap this year, and the Cavs had so much success in direct result to him. We saw what happened to their offense whenever he was out. Jordan Poole, our guy, got the second spot for me, and then I went John Morant for third. And I know some people will look at that and say, philosophically, are you really going to give the guy most improved for going from star to superstar? But I think that he did ascend this year. And so maybe it's cheating a little bit because he's already really, really good. But I went with Ja for my third spot there.
Yeah, and I think I have no issue with that. We say it all the time that the leap from good player to star is tough, but the leap from star to superstar is even harder. So why not, reward the guy when he actually makes that leap? All right, Coach of the Year, your turn. Go first.
So Coach of the Year, and I've been seeing a lot of pushback against this, but in my mind, it's Taylor Jenkins. It's that simple. And I've seen a lot of people say, a lot of articles, especially from my son's guys, articles have been coming out saying the Coach of the Year is Monty Williams and it's not close and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, well, the Coach of the Year award tends to go to the team that outperforms expectations the most. Okay, that's what you usually see. Same thing with Executive of the Year. That's usually the way that goes. And I thought that the Grizzlies not only were tremendous all season long, but they also did a great job mitigating injuries and dealing with, okay, Ja is out. Oh, we just keep winning, right? They just keep on rolling. So I'm going Taylor Jenkins. Monty Williams does get the number 2. And then I went with Ime Udoka for the third slot. And that wasn't just to earn your favor or anything, Keith. I just
was gonna say, who's the Celtics guy on this podcast?
Right? I thought that their defense, the way it turned a corner, hit another level compared to anything else we've seen in the NBA this season. And so I want to give him credit for that, in particular fighting through all the negative commentary around him and all of that and managing to stay firm with what he was working for. I thought that was very commendable. So that's my top 3.
Yeah, really. And this was tough. I flip-flopped to the top 2. I did have Monty Williams. It is supposed to be an award for this year, but sometimes prior years bleed in. And I felt like he could have won it last year. Maybe should have won it. They were the best team in the league, most dominant team in the league almost all year for them. The only reason they even backed off was because they sat a bunch of guys at the end because they clinched everything, both conferences, best record in the league, all of that so early that they were able to back off. And then Taylor Jenkins, I had second, for all the reasons you called out, unbelievable season for Memphis. And now this is 3 good seasons in a row for the Grizzlies that they've beat expectations. I think Taylor Jenkins is starting to be one of those guys where Memphis locked him up to an extension soon before that becomes a thing. And then I put Eric Spoelstra in the third spot. I thought the Heat were really good. They were better than I thought they would
Always a
be.
good pick.
Yeah, and I also look at it too is they went through a lot of stuff with a lot of guys out throughout the course of the year. Bam missed a lot of time. Kyle Lowry missed a lot of time. Butler missed some time. PJ Tucker missed some time, and they just keep rolling. There's no team in the league I feel more confident about. Hey, here's a random dude from the G League. All right, plug him into the rotation and give it a week, and that guy's coached up and ready to go. Than the Miami Heat, and that's a Spoelstra thing and a developmental thing. But yeah, good. All right, we'll go to executive of the year. Now, this one's a little bit different. The reason, if anybody's wondering why there was not an announcement of the finalists, this one's not voted on by the media like all the other awards are. This one's voted on by the other executives with the base rules of they just can't vote for themselves, but we threw it in here anyway. All right, call me a homer again. Brad Stevens. I put in the top spot, Kobe Altman, second, Arturas Karnisovas, third. Stevens, I thought making the Horford for Kemba trade is huge. That got everything off to a huge start. Then two things. One, making the Derek White move, kind of basically saying, you know what? This Dennis Schroeder signing we made over the summer is not going so great. Going and getting Daniel Tice back, which now looks even better considering Robert Williams' injury being out. But also the willingness to stick with it and not trade Tatum or Brown and basically say, no, we believe in these guys. We're going to roll with what we have here. I think that also can't be underrated. Kobe Altman put together a great team in Cleveland. That vision to say, hey, we're going to be big, we're going to be goofy, but I think it'll work. It was huge. And then Karnisovas kind of rebuilding the Bulls on the fly here in the span of an off season. Maybe I let it bleed in a little bit with getting Vooch last year, but they, getting DeRozan, getting Ball, getting Caruso. I think we've kind of forgotten that team was really, really good when they were healthy, and then injuries kind of waylaid them. So those were my top three.
All right. I've got Zach Kleiman for the Grizzlies getting my top spot. I think that I give a lot of credit to teams who have the temptation to cash in some pieces and go for it and don't. And decide they're going to continue to build organically and do what they need to do there around a young team. And so I give the Grizzlies a lot of credit for the patience they had there. Maybe I'm just copying and pasting my Coach of the Year answer there. I don't know, but I think that they made some very smart moves in terms of having that kind of patience to let this team really grow and build out and go from there. And then I went Bob Myers for the Warriors. I thought he's made some very smart decisions. I thought that the signings that he made this offseason, you look at bringing in Otto Porter and Bielitsa, he brought in guys that fit their system, guys that were in demand, that were out there. And then I also went Brad Stevens in my third spot just because of, again, we didn't know. I thought it was a gamble, the Horford trade. You knew he could fit personality-wise. You knew he'd be good there. But, I mean, who knew at 35 he'd be taking, fast breaks, coast to coast, dunking them like he looks like he's 25 right now. So that gamble certainly has paid off.
Yep. All right. So that's the individuals. Let's get into the team awards now. I will say this off the jump before we get in all NBA. I did it the way the NBA encourages people to do it, which is you vote for the guy at the position they play most. So did not play games here and put Jokic and Embiid both first team. Had I done that, my first team would have been my 5 MVP guys because I would have just slid Tatum down to the guard line and then just had Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Booker, and Tatum. But I tried to do it the way the league says to do it, which is how I do think it's going to play out in real life. So my top, my center, Jokic, my forwards, Giannis and Tatum. My guard, one of the guards is Booker. So then, because I moved Embiid to the second center, I moved Luka Doncic into the first team as the other guard. People scream and yell that he's not a guard. He's a guard. I don't like. That's what he is. If you actually go and look at the Mavs box scores too, every single game he's listed as a starting. So it is what it is. So it's Tatum, Booker, Luka.
So I did kind of collude here, which is what it would take. It would take the voters kind of talking to each other in order to make this happen, because the way it works is you actually have to, so in order to get in at a certain position, It's not just you have to be the top of that position. You have to get more votes at that position than you do at any other position.
Yep.
Which means it would take a lot of coordination on the part of voters. Say, hey, okay, we know Jokic and Embiid should both be in the top 5. Everybody vote Jokic at center and everybody vote Embiid at forward in order to make this happen. Otherwise, if you were to split the votes between those two, it would be a mess.
Yep.
So anyway, but that's what I did. So I went Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Booker, and Luka, again mirroring my MVP vote.
All right. What's your second team?
Second team, I've got Karl Anthony Towns, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Ja Morant, and Chris Paul on my second team there.
So we're obviously different at center because I have Embiid as my second team center. Then I had Kevin Durant as the forward there. A couple people may say, why Tatum over Durant? His games played is more than anything else. Like he played so much more. So that's why I would go with Tatum on the first team over Durant. Then my other forward, this one might be where there's a little bit of controversy, but go look at the numbers. This guy was really good. I had Pascal Siakam.
Oh, I like it.
As my second forward. Then I had Ja Morant as one of the guards. Then I had Steph as the other guard. And it was tough between Steph and Chris Paul. I went back and forth quite a bit, but I went with Steph as my second guard there. I thought he was, excellent. This year when he did play, he was an MVP candidate, for a lot of the year. So I went with that. Then my third team. So now we're getting into where maybe it gets a little bit different. My third team center, I actually went with Bam. I felt weird when I finished this initially. Maybe I'm going to give something away here, but I didn't have anybody from the Heat.
Yeah, and they're the 1 seed.
3 teams, and they're the 1 seed. And I just think, for reasons, I think there were forwards who were better than Jimmy Butler, which I'll get into in a second. And I just felt like Bam was really, really good. Cat, very close, very, very close. I had that one I went back and forth on, but then I was like, I got to have somebody from the Heat represented there. My forwards, I went with LeBron. I mean, the numbers are there. He's on the third team because of the games played in the team record, but the numbers are there. The numbers are absurd. Then I went with DeMar DeRozan. I don't feel bad about that choice at all. I think he had a great season. There was a point in time where he was an MVP candidate. Then I went with Chris Paul, and then my last guard, I went with Trae Young. Again, that's a numbers thing. He did get his team there in the end. By the time I filled this out, I did it before the play-in games were done, but I felt like he'd done what he needed to do record-wise to get his team there, and the numbers were there. So Bam, LeBron, DeMar DeRozan, Chris Paul, Trae Young.
Okay, so here's mine. I also went with Bam Adebayo as all NBA third team, but I gave a nod to Jimmy Butler. Like you mentioned, there are some other players who maybe could be ahead of him, but the Miami Heat being the 1 seed, how good they've been this year, I decided to give them a second player there. LeBron, Steph Curry, and DeMar DeRozan rounded out my third team all NBA.
So you moved DeRozan down to the guard line, that's where he was at All-Star. So,
that's where I put him.
No real issue there. Yeah. So, soapbox moment. Let's just make this positionless.
Please.
NBA.
Yes.
Let's just we can just pick the best 5. I realize then historical precedent and stuff maybe gets thrown off, but I don't really care. Yeah. Like, just please go positionless. It just make it easier on everybody. I don't want to have these silly arguments.
Sometimes because that's what we've always done isn't a good reason.
Nope, never a good enough answer. Absolutely. All right, all defense teams. My first team, pretty easy. I had my 3 guys, so Smart, Bam, and Bridges on my first team. Then my other forward, Jaren Jackson Jr., who had a tremendous year. And then Matisse Thybulle, who was just, for large chunks of the year was absolute lockdown as the other guard. That's my all-defense first team.
Okay, so I am... And this isn't too much of a stretch. I'm using Bam as a forward in this. So I've got Gobert, Bam, Jaren Jackson Jr., and then my guards are Smart and Bridges.
Okay, not bad. All right, second team. That's where I put Gobert. I put him behind Bam. Then Giannis. Then Draymond. I bumped Draymond down to the second team, just the games played thing. Jackson was better. Then I went with DeJounte Murray, who is one of the better all-around guards, also really good defensive rebounder for a guard. And then I went with Fred VanVleet, who I think gets overlooked in the fact that Toronto, when we think of the Raptors, first thing you think about is a bunch of dudes who are 6'8" with 7-foot wingspans. But Fred VanVleet's really, really good. He is so tough on ball that I really wanted to make sure to get him in there.
Keith, you're making me look like the Celtics homer again here. I've got Robert Williams as my center on the second unit, and I think that his mobility, in addition to the rim protection, where he's not super mobile, but he's got enough to where they can get away with having him out there and still be really, really good in terms of recovering defensively. I thought that was really key to the Celtics defense, so I go with him there. I've got Giannis, Matisse Thybulle, Drew Holiday, and Herb Jones on my second unit.
Not on Herb.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. I was close. I was really, really close with Herb Jones. And I maybe I looked at it as, all right, well, we're doing this 10 years
Sure.
from now. He'll have racked up 9 of them by then. So yeah, he's good. So, all right, I will tell you where I did have Herb Jones. We'll finish this out with our all rookie teams. These are positionless. All rookie is a positionless thing, thank God, because by the time you get to the last couple spots on the second team, it gets a little, but the top 3 guys I had for rookie of the year: Barnes, Mobley, Cunningham. Then I had Franz Wagner, only Franz, from the Orlando Magic. I think he was terrific. And then I had Herb Jones as the other first team all rookie guy. I thought, defensively, just unbelievable year defensively. And then Wagner was just really, really good. I mean, I know people stopped probably watching Orlando shortly after the first of the year, but he was terrific.
He absolutely was. He did not make my first team by one spot. He didn't make so I've got Mobley, Barnes, Cade, Jones, and Jalen Green. And I went with Jalen Green. It's a toss-up, though. I mean, him and Franz, they were both fantastic this year.
Yeah. Jalen Green was good. I don't have any real issue with that. He's on my second team along with Josh Giddey, who was really good. NBA Chalamet, I thought was pretty good as a triple-double candidate and playing really, really well. Then it gets a little tough to round this out. So I start looking a little bit at team success and guys who put up numbers as well. I went with Jonathan Kuminga for the Warriors. I think it was pretty solid. I went with Bones Highland from the Nuggets, rotation guy from day one, and held his own. And then I went with Chris Duarte from the Pacers. I think he got lost a little bit because they were terrible at the end of the year and he got hurt, but he had a really good, solid all-around rookie season. Came in billed as, this guy's probably the most ready to play right out of the gate, and that proved to be true.
Okay, so I went with Franz Wagner. I went with Giddey. I went Ayo Dosunmu. Then I threw in Bones Highland. Got a nod for me. He was my Vontae Mack no matter what heading into this draft. It was Bones Highland no matter what, so he's going to get... And then I made my one homer pick here. I had to do it.
Here it is.
HBK, Austin Reeves. Come on. He's going to... Look, he outplayed veterans and earned a spot on the Lakers rotation and earned the trust of LeBron James. So I'm giving the kid some love here.
Hey, man, that's what it's all about. And again, these weren't real ballots, so these were our choices. So yeah, I have no problem with that. But there it is, guys. You can let us know in the comments where you think we blew it, what you think we did wrong with these picks. Now that we've recorded this, I will be putting mine out on Twitter later for the world to see what it looked like with this. But yeah, it was tough though. Some of these choices were really, really hard, and I know at least for me, like I tried to put effort in, like this was a real ballot. For me, I really spent an awful lot of time looking at these guys and trying to figure this out. But yeah, all around a hard, difficult year, and this whole thing of these kind of sorta, and there's no real there's a what is it? What do they say in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies? They're more of guidelines.
They're more like guidelines.
Rules. Yeah. So it's like that's even these guidelines aren't very good. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. This was a tremendous. I know you maybe feel different for very good reasons. I thought this was a really good, fun NBA season. I think the league showed it is in great hands with all the incredible young talent that is coming into the league. For a while there, I mean, we might have to go back 3-4 years ago now. There was a real question of like, what happens when LeBron and crew age out? Like, where are we going, with the league? Because there was a sense of like Durant, Curry, Westbrook, those guys, they're all close in age to those guys. They're only going to be around a few more years after. I mean, at this point, LeBron might outplay all of them as far as longevity goes. We do knows, but it is with the emergence of some of the guys like, Tatum, Booker, of course, Giannis, Embiid, like, and then this rookie class being so good. Like, the league's as deep in talent as I can ever remember. And I think that made this such a fun year.
Uh, Taking a step back from the Lakers, yes, this was a fun year. From the
Yep.
Lakers lens, it was literally the worst
Oh,
year ever. It's literally the worst year
yeah.
in team history relative to expectations. So it was, for me,
Yeah.
that was a grind, night in and night out, and we're going to do it all off season too. We're going to be talking about this team and all of these self inflicted wounds and everything. So for me, this is not a season that I will look back on fondly at all.
No,
But
I can completely
from an
understand.
NBA perspective, yes, I thought in particular how tight the playoff races were in both conferences were pretty exciting. Aside from Phoenix really running away with the West, you had some intrigue, particularly in the middle of the brackets there, and in the middle of the
Yep.
table. I mean, so it was a fun one in that regard. I thought the play-in.
You went with table. You in
I
the
always
soccer
I always
talk
go
here?
table. I don't know why. It's how it's the
I love
word
it.
that I think of when I look at it. But in any event,
I love it.
it's and I thought the play-in tournament was excellent once again. And the
Yeah.
NBA has gotten there. Are people who say, well, it's not fair to the 7 seed or whatever. There's going to be a line that you draw somewhere, no matter what. I think from the league perspective, it's a great thing, and it just adds to the
Yep.
excitement at the end of the season. And it's acted as a tanking deterrent, so I think that is here to stay. And it's created more interest in the league late in the season. So yeah, I mean overall for the NBA, good season. For the Lakers, let's get to July 1st, please. Fast forward.
All I'm gonna say about the Lakers is, and man, maybe I'm biased on this one, is the way you cover the team day in day out. I really appreciate, because it's not you were not all rainbows and sunshine. You didn't go there as quick as some Lakers fans went. I felt like it was Christmas and they were like, this team
Oh
sucks,
yes,
blow it up,
yeah.
trade everybody, fire it.
In general, I'm
You
more
hung
even
in.
keeled, and that's
Yeah, I
my
thought you did
personality.
a really good job, but I thought once it became clear shortly after the trade deadline that it was going to be kind of probably not where the season wanted to go. I thought you did a good job then of calling out the things that were problems, calling out the stuff, but in a fair way without being hyperbolic and overly critical, but never, like I said, there wasn't a, oh, it's all rainbows and sunshine. It's all good. And I'll tell you guys, it can be really hard to cover a team and try to keep it down the middle, because there are times when you get frustrated. I
Sure.
mean, Trevor and I talk a lot off air, and there's times when you're like, God, this team sucks. Fire them all into the sun. I'm done. But then there's other times when they do really good stuff, and you're like, all right, maybe I'm gonna allow myself to believe a little bit here, that, and it can be really hard. And in your own self-interest comes in as well when you're covering a
Sure.
team, because it's you like, for me, I can say now the Celtics, part of my desire for them to make a good long playoff run is more people read my stuff. I have more stuff to
Yep.
write about the rest of the year. I have a lot of stuff to put out over at Celtics blog, and that, the better the team is, the more the field gets pared down, the more people start looking at that stuff. I've seen it. I know what my numbers look like on the years when they've made those deep runs into the playoffs. So there's some selfishness creeps in there as well, along with, right, these are the teams we grew up
Sure.
with and fans of and everything else. But it can be kind of hard to play that down the line. And I think you, and I think, most of your crew, Lakers Nation, you guys did a really good job, despite it being a, complete crap fest of a season that nobody, wanted, minus, some of my brethren up north here on the East Coast in the New England
Well,
area.
thank you. Much appreciated, Keith. We do try to take things as down the middle as we can, but we're also fans too at heart, and so that certainly matters. And it was like we said, it was a frustrating season, but you mentioned the opposite. I think that's what stresses me out the most. Is I know I've got 3 months now of potential Russell Westbrook trades to talk about. Like that's where it gets tough. And this for me, I'm the type where a lot of people say like, oh, cool, you get time off and all that kind of stuff. You don't have quite as much to do. You're not as busy. I'm like, I stress more when I don't have a lot to cover. So
Yep.
no, for me, that my stress level goes through the roof looking at, okay, we've got April, we've got May, then we get to June, we have the draft, but then we're going to have another long, and we haven't had this in the last few years because we've had shorter off seasons.
Yeah.
Then we've got that typical drought too from
Yep.
fourth week of July ish through middle of September. we're going to have that too.
Yep.
So for what we do, that makes things more difficult for sure. And so that certainly does
Yeah.
factor into my experience on the whole season.
No, I'm with you. There comes a time when we get into late July, early August. I'm so conditioned now to, like then I can breathe. I can, because then by that point, it's also people aren't necessarily looking for stuff right
Right.
then, right? They've turned to their football brain, right?
Yep.
They're gearing up for NFL preseason and all that, and that is our time to breathe. And we plan our lives around this calendar, this
We
specific
do.
calendar of the way the NBA works, and it's been all thrown out of whack the last couple of years. It's been weird and goofy and all this other stuff. It's funny. My wife's birthday is at the end of June and tends to fall on draft day
Oh,
quite often. And she's like, "Oh, cool. We're back to the draft maybe being on my birthday again." She's like, "I did kind of like those couple of years where it wasn't on my birthday." But in general, this is this can be a really tough time, but at least here on the front office show side, we're gonna have a ton of stuff because we'll continue to cover the playoffs and all the stuff that's gonna trickle out. I think we're gonna continue to get I think we're gonna get a lot of trade
yep.
rumors because there's just not a lot of
I
cap
agree.
space. It's not a great free agent class. I also think the league is super duper wide open. So people are gonna be like, hey, we can do this. And the playoffs teach us what do we need to win? Where are we at? And as teams fall out of the playoffs, so we're gonna have all that coverage for you guys. We got a lot of fun stuff planned for summer league and the draft and free agency and all that stuff coming down the line. So so stick with us here if you're looking for the league wide coverage because we're gonna have a lot of fun the rest of over the next few months leading in, and we're a lot of cool stuff going on.
Absolutely. So make sure you do rate, review, and subscribe over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. And of course, subscribe to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications as well. Supersized episode today. We hit almost an hour and 20 minutes here.
Hey, it's been
That's
while.
right. It has been a little bit. So we had tons to get through. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the giant size episode that we got here. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.